Jake Morrison walked through the huge glass halls of the Galactic Council building. His black shoes made soft sounds on the smooth floor. The building was so big that he could not see the end of it. Light came through the walls from outside, making everything shine like diamonds. He had been on this planet for 3 months now. 3 long months of talking and meeting with aliens from different worlds. Jake was here to make a deal between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire. It was not an easy job. The Zephyrians were known for being tough fighters who loved war more than peace. Jake wore his best dark blue suit. His tie was straight and his hair was neat. He looked like any businessman from Earth, but he was much more than that. Jake was one of Earth's best diplomats. He could talk to anyone and make them listen. He had solved problems that others said could not be fixed. The meeting room was full of strange beings from all over the galaxy. Some looked like giant insects. Others looked like walking trees or floating clouds. Jake had learned not to stare at them anymore. After 3 months, he was used to seeing creatures that would have scared him back on Earth. The Zephyrian team sat at a long metal table. They looked like huge beetles that could walk on 2 legs. Their skin was hard like armor. Their eyes were big and black. When they talked, clicking sounds came from their mouths. Jake had learned to understand these sounds through his translator device. For weeks, the talks had been going well. Both sides wanted to trade goods. Earth had things the Zephyrians needed. The Zephyrians had metals and crystals that Earth wanted. It seemed like everyone would be happy with the deal. Then everything changed. The big doors at the end of the room opened with a loud crash. A huge Zephyrian walked in. He was much bigger than the others. He stood almost 9 feet tall. His armor-like skin was darker and thicker. Red marks covered his arms and chest. These were battle scars that showed he was a warrior. Jake knew who this was right away. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Warlord Korath Vex. He was the top military leader of the Zephyrian Empire. He commanded millions of ships and soldiers. He had won more battles than any other Zephyrian in history. Korath stomped into the room. His heavy feet made the floor shake. The other Zephyrians quickly moved away from him. Even his own people seemed afraid of him. The alien delegates from other worlds became very quiet. Some of them tried to hide behind their chairs. Jake stayed, in his seat. He did not move or show any fear on his face. Inside, his heart was beating fast, but he had learned long ago not to let aliens see when he was scared. Korath looked around the room with his 4 big eyes. When he saw Jake, he stopped. He stared at the human for a long time, then he spoke. His voice was so loud that it hurt to listen to. The translator device on Jake's ear began to work. It turned Korath's alien words into English that Jake could understand. "What is this small creature doing in our meeting room?" Korath asked. His voice sounded angry and mean. "Why are we talking to these weak mammals? They are not worth our time." The head of the Zephyrian peace team, a smaller alien named Vrex, tried to explain. "Great Warlord, we are making a trade agreement with the humans. It will bring profit to our empire." Korath made a sound like angry laughter. "Profit? From these soft pink things? Look at them. They cannot even breathe our air without machines. They need special suits to visit most planets. How can such weak beings have anything we want?" Jake stood up slowly. He was much smaller than Korath, but he did not let that stop him. He had dealt with bullies before, both human and alien. The trick was to stay calm and not show fear. "Warlord Vex," Jake said in a clear voice. "I am Ambassador Jake Morrison from Earth. We are here to discuss trade that will help both our peoples." Korath turned all 4 of his eyes toward Jake. The alien's face showed surprise and anger. Most beings did not speak to him unless he spoke to them first. "You dare to speak to me, little mammal? Do you know who I am? I have destroyed entire star systems. I have crushed armies of warriors much stronger than your whole species." Jake nodded politely. "Yes, I know who you are. Your reputation is known throughout the galaxy, but strength in war and wisdom in peace are different things. We offer friendship and trade, not conflict." This made Korath even more angry. His 4 eyes began to glow with a red light. His mouth opened to show sharp teeth that looked like knives. "Friendship? Korath said the word like it tasted bad. Your species has never conquered anything important. You have never built a great empire. You hide on one small planet and send out weak explorers who run away from any real danger. The other aliens in the room became very nervous. Some of them started to leave. They did not want to be there if a fight started. The Zephyrian peace team looked worried. They had worked hard on this trade deal, and now their top military leader was ruining everything. Jake felt anger growing inside him, but he kept his face calm. He had heard these insults before from other alien species. Many of them thought humans were weak because they were new to space travel. Earth had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. That was a very short time compared to empires that were thousands of years old. Warlord, Jake said, you speak of conquest and empire, but the greatest victories are won without fighting. Trade brings wealth without the cost of war. Peace builds more than destruction ever can. Korath stepped closer to Jake. The alien was so big that he blocked out the light from above. His shadow fell over the human diplomat. Peace is for the weak, Korath said. Only the strong deserve to survive. Your species proves this. You are soft and small. You cannot fight. You can only talk. In nature, the weak are eaten by the strong. This is the way of the universe. Jake looked up at the huge alien warrior. Around the room, dozens of other aliens watched to see what would happen. This moment would decide more than just the trade deal. It would decide how the galaxy saw humanity. Perhaps, you're right, Warlord, Jake said quietly. Perhaps humans are weak, perhaps we cannot fight. But if you truly believe this, would you be willing to prove it? The room became completely silent. Even the soft humming sounds from the building's machines seemed to stop. Every alien in the room stared at Jake. They could not believe what they had just heard. Korath's 4 eyes opened wide. For the first time since he had entered the room, he looked surprised instead of angry. What did you say, human? Jake took a deep breath. What he was about to do would either save humanity's reputation or destroy it completely. But he had studied Zephyrian culture for months. He knew that they respected only one thing more than strength. Courage. I said, if you believe humans are weak, perhaps you would like to test that belief. I challenge you to prove your words, Warlord Korath Vex. The challenge hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Everyone in the room understood what Jake had just done. In Zephyrian culture, a formal challenge could not be ignored. It had to be answered with action. Korath stared at Jake for a long moment. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his alien face. But it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found easy prey. Very well, little human, you want to test your strength against mine? I accept your challenge. The words came out of Jake's mouth before he could stop them. But now that he had said them, there was no going back. Every alien in the room was staring at him like he had grown a second head. Korath's smile grew wider. His sharp teeth gleamed in the light. You challenge me? Do you even know what that means in my culture, human? Jake nodded slowly. He had studied Zephyrian customs for months before coming here. He knew exactly what he was doing, even if it scared him. I know, Warlord. A formal challenge between representatives of 2 species. Single combat to prove which race is stronger. The room exploded into noise. Aliens began talking in dozens of different languages. Some sounded excited, others sounded terrified. The Zephyrian peace team was clicking their mandibles rapidly, which Jake had learned meant they were very upset. Council Speaker Thylex floated to the center of the room. The ancient Altarian looked like a living crystal that could think and talk. His voice was like wind chimes when he spoke. Order. Order in this chamber. Thylex's words echoed through the room. Ambassador Morrison, do you understand what you have proposed? Single combat challenges have not been used in galactic diplomacy for over 300 years. Jake looked at the crystal being. His heart was pounding, but his voice stayed steady. I understand perfectly, Speaker Thylex. I propose formal single combat according to ancient Zephyrian law. If I lose, humanity will withdraw from all trade negotiations with the Zephyrian Empire for 50 years. If Warlord Korath loses, He will personally guarantee our trade agreement and acknowledge humans as equals in the galactic community. The noise in the room got even louder. Several alien delegates stood up and started arguing with each other. The Zephyrian peace team leader, Vrex, stepped forward. He looked very worried. "Great Warlord," Vrex said to Korath, "perhaps this is not wise. The human does not understand what he asks. This could cause problems with other species if we kill their diplomat." Korath waved a huge hand to silence Vrex. The Warlord was studying Jake with his 4 eyes. He tilted his head to one side like a giant bug examining something interesting. "Tell me, human," Korath said, "have you ever killed another being in combat?" Jake thought about this question. He had been in dangerous situations before. He had been shot at during his time as a military officer before becoming a diplomat, but he had never killed anyone with his own hands. "No," Jake answered honestly. "I have not." "Have you ever fought with weapons?" "I have trained with weapons, but I have never used them in real combat." Korath's laugh was like the sound of rocks falling down a mountain. "You have never killed, you have never fought, yet you challenge me? I have killed hundreds of warriors in personal combat. I have won 17 formal duels. I have never been defeated." The alien delegates were listening to every word. Jake could see the fear in their eyes. They thought he was crazy. Maybe he was crazy. But sometimes crazy was the only way to win. "That may be true, Warlord," Jake said. "But there is something you should know about humans. We do not fight because we are the strongest. We fight because we refuse to give up. That makes us more dangerous than you think." Several aliens in the room made sounds that Jake's translator could not understand. He guessed they were either laughing at him or praying for him. Korath stepped even closer to Jake. The alien was so big that Jake had to bend his head back to look at him. The Warlord's breath smelled like metal and fire. "Very well, small human, I accept your challenge. We will fight according to the old ways. Each fighter chooses one weapon. We fight until one of us yields or dies. Do you accept these terms?" Jake felt his mouth go dry. Dies. He had hoped that yielding would be enough, but Zephyrian honor was harsh. If he wanted to prove human worth, he had to be willing to risk everything. "I accept," Jake said. The room fell completely silent. Even the humming of the building's machines seemed to stop. Then slowly, aliens began to stand up. Some were leaving because they did not want to watch what would happen next. Others were staying because they had never seen anything like this before. Council Speaker Thylex floated forward again. "This is most irregular. The Galactic Council has not overseen a challenge duel in centuries. But the laws are clear. If both parties agree, the duel must be allowed." A small alien that looked like a walking flower stepped forward. This was Ambassador Petal from the Botanical Collective. Her voice was like a whisper when she spoke. "Ambassador Morrison, surely you do not need to do this. There must be another way to resolve this dispute." Jake shook his head. "Thank you for your concern, Ambassador Petal. But sometimes words are not enough. Sometimes you have to show people who you really are." Korath made an approving sound. For the first time, he looked at Jake with something that might have been respect instead of contempt. "The human speaks truth," Korath said. "Words are wind. Actions are real. In 3 days, we will see what this human is truly made of." 3 days. Jake felt his stomach drop. 3 days to prepare for a fight that would probably kill him. 3 days to figure out how to defeat a warrior who had never lost. "Where will this duel take place?" asked Thylex. "The old arena," Korath said immediately. "It has not been used for many years, but it still exists. We will prepare it for proper combat." Jake's aide, Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster, had been standing quietly in the corner during the whole meeting. Now she stepped forward. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. "Sir," she said quietly to Jake, "may I speak with you privately?" Jake nodded. "Warlord Korath, I need a few minutes to discuss the details with my staff. Is this acceptable?" Korath waved his hand. "Go. Plan what you will. It will not matter. In 3 days, you will die, and your species will learn its place in the galaxy." Jake and Amy walked to a small side room. As soon as the door closed, Amy grabbed Jake's arm. "Are you insane?" she whispered urgently. "Do you have any idea what you just did? Korath is not just any Zephyrian warrior. He is genetically enhanced. He has been trained to kill since he was born. His bones are harder than steel. His reflexes are faster than a computer. You cannot win this fight." Jake sat down in a chair and put his head in his hands. Now that the moment was over, the reality of what he had done was hitting him. "I know, Amy. I know exactly what I did." "Then, why did you do it? We could have found another way. We could have worked around him somehow." Jake looked up at his aide. Amy had been with him for 2 years. She was smart and loyal and had saved his life more than once. She deserved an honest answer. "Because he was right," Jake said quietly. "About humans being weak, I mean. Compared to most alien species, we are weak. We are small and soft and we die easily, but he was wrong about one thing." "What?" "He thinks that makes us worthless. But our weakness is not our shame. It is our strength. We have survived on a planet full of predators. We have built civilizations despite being small and weak. We have reached the stars not because we are strong, but because we refuse to accept that we cannot do something." Amy stared at him. "That is a nice speech, sir, but it will not stop Korath from cutting you in half." Jake smiled for the first time since the challenge began. "Maybe not, but it might give me an edge he does not expect." "What do you mean?" "Korath has fought hundreds of warriors, but he has never fought a human. He does not know how we think. He does not know how we fight. He expects me to fight like a Zephyrian warrior with strength and aggression, but that is not how humans win battles." "How do humans win battles?" Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside he could see alien ships landing at the spaceport. Word of the challenge was already spreading. Soon the whole galaxy would know what was happening. We win by being smarter than our enemies. We win by using their strength against them. We win by never giving up even when everyone thinks we should. And sometimes, Amy, we win by doing something so unexpected that our enemies do not know how to respond. Amy still looked worried. "What weapon will you choose?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled again. "Something that will remind everyone in the galaxy who humans really are." News of the challenge spread across the galaxy faster than Jake could have imagined. Within hours of the meeting, every major news network was talking about it. The headlines were all the same. "Human Diplomat challenges alien warlord to death." Match on Earth. President Helen Carter was woken up at 3 in the morning by an urgent call from her chief of staff. She sat up in bed trying to understand what she was being told. "Morrison did what?" she asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "He challenged Warlord Korath Vex to single combat, Madam President. The duel will take place in 2 days." "President." Carter got out of bed and walked to her window. Outside, she could see the lights of the capital city. Somewhere out there, millions of humans were sleeping peacefully, not knowing that their entire future might depend on one man's fight. "Get everyone to the Situation Room, now." 2 hours later, President Carter sat at the head of a long table surrounded by her top advisors. General Frank Hayes, the head of Earth's military, was red in the face with anger. "Morrison has lost his mind," the general shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "He has doomed our entire species. When Korath kills him, and he will kill him, humanity will be a laughingstock. No alien species will ever take us seriously again." Dr. Lisa Park, Earth's best expert on alien biology, was looking at holographic images of Korath. The pictures showed every detail of the Zephyrian's body. "The general is right to be concerned," Dr. Park said quietly. "Korath is not just big and strong. His species has been genetically changed over thousands of years to be perfect warriors. His bones are 5 times harder than human bones. His muscles are 3 times stronger. His reflexes are so fast that he can dodge bullets." "What about his weaknesses?" asked President Carter. "Every species has weaknesses." Dr. Park shook her head. "Very few, Madam President. Zephyrians have trouble with extreme cold, but the duel will not take place in freezing temperatures. They are also vulnerable to certain sound frequencies. but weapons that use sound are not traditional combat tools. Colonel Steve Banks, who had recently returned from a secret mission in space, raised his hand. "Ma'am, if I may offer a different opinion?" President Carter nodded for him to continue. "I have studied Ambassador Morrison's record carefully. In the past 5 years, he has solved 12 major diplomatic crises. Each time, experts said the problem was impossible to fix. Each time, Morrison found a way to win that nobody else had thought of." "This is different," General Hayes argued. "This is not a negotiation. This is a fight to the death. You cannot talk your way out of having your head cut off." Colonel Banks smiled. "With respect, General, I think you are underestimating what makes Morrison special. He does not just talk to aliens, he understands how they think. He sees things that other people miss. If he issued this challenge, he has a plan." Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, Jake Morrison was indeed planning, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of training with weapons or studying Zephyrian fighting techniques, Jake was doing something that puzzled everyone who saw him. He was sitting quietly in his room, not moving, with his eyes closed. Amy Foster watched him from the doorway. She had never seen him like this before. "Sir," she said softly, "are you all right?" Jake opened his eyes and smiled at her. "I am fine, Amy. I am just thinking." "About what?" "About a story my grandfather told me when I was young. He was a soldier in the old wars on Earth. He told me about a battle where his unit was surrounded by enemies. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. Everyone thought they were going to die." Amy sat down in a chair across from him. "What happened?" "My grandfather realized that the enemy was expecting them to fight like soldiers. They were expecting attacks and defenses and all the normal things that happen in battles. So instead, my grandfather did something completely different. He surrendered." "He gave up?" Jake shook his head. "No, he pretended to give up. The enemy soldiers came close to capture his unit, but my grandfather and his men were not really surrendering. They were getting the enemy soldiers close enough to attack them by surprise. It worked. They won the battle by doing something that nobody expected." Amy was quiet for a moment. "Are you planning to surrender to Korath?" "No," Jake said, "but I am planning to do something that he will not expect. Korath has fought hundreds of warriors, but they all fought the same way. They all tried to be stronger and faster than him. They all failed because they played by his rules." "What rules will you play by?" Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see aliens from all over the galaxy arriving at the spaceport. They were coming to watch the duel. Most of them probably expected to see him die. "Human rules," Jake said simply. The next morning, Jake made an announcement that surprised everyone. He chose his weapon for the duel. Instead of picking a powerful laser gun or a vibrating sword or any of the advanced weapons available, Jake chose something that made the aliens scratch their heads in confusion. He chose a katana, a simple steel sword from ancient Japan on Earth. Amy stared at the weapon lying on Jake's bed. It looked so ordinary compared to the advanced weapons that most species used. "Sir, are you sure about this? Korath will be using a monomolecular blade. That thing can cut through almost anything. Your sword is just regular steel." Jake picked up the katana and held it carefully. The blade was perfectly balanced. It had been made by a master swordsmith on Earth using techniques that were thousands of years old. This sword was made by a man named Tanaka. He spent his whole life learning how to make perfect blades. "Do you know what he told me when he gave this to me?" Amy shook her head. "He said that the strength of a sword does not come from the metal. It comes from the spirit of the person who holds it." Amy looked worried. "Sir, with all due respect, spirit will not stop Korath's blade from cutting you in half." Jake smiled and put the sword back in its case. "Maybe not, but it might give me something that Korath does not have." "What is that?" "The willingness to do whatever it takes to win." While Jake was preparing in his own way, Korath was doing what everyone expected. The Zephyrian Warlord had set up a training area in the military section of the spaceport. Hundreds of Zephyrian warriors had come to watch their champion practice. Korath moved through combat exercises with deadly grace. His warblade cut through practice targets like they were made of paper. His movements were so fast that they were Hard to follow with the naked eye. One of his subordinates, a younger Zephyrian named Crix, approached him during a break in training. "Great Warlord," Crix said. "The human has chosen an unusual weapon, a primitive steel blade from his homeworld." Korath made a sound that might have been laughter. "Of course he has. Humans cling to their primitive past because they have no real future. This blade will break against my war sword like glass. But sir, is it not strange? The human could have chosen any weapon. Why pick something so weak?" Korath stopped his exercises and looked at Crix. The younger warrior was showing concern, which was unusual for their species. "You think the human has a plan?" Korath asked. "I do not know, Great Warlord, but humans are known for their tricks. They are weak, but they are cunning." Korath considered this. He had heard stories about human tactics in war. They did not fight like honorable warriors. They used deception and surprise and other dishonorable methods. "It does not matter," Korath decided. "Tricks cannot overcome true strength. Tomorrow, I will show this human what real power looks like. I will show the galaxy that the Zephyrian Empire is not to be mocked." That evening, Jake had dinner with Amy and the rest of his diplomatic team. The meal was quiet. Everyone was thinking about what would happen the next day. "Sir," said Dr. Rodriguez, the team's cultural expert, "I have been studying Zephyrian duel traditions. There are some things you should know." Jake nodded for him to continue. "The duel will take place in the old arena. It is a circular space about 50 meters across. The floor is made of a special metal that is very hard and smooth. There are no obstacles or places to hide. What about the rules? Simple. Each fighter enters with one weapon. They fight until one of them yields or dies. There are no time limits, no breaks, no outside help." Amy leaned forward. "What happens if Jake wins?" Dr. Rodriguez looked surprised by the question. "If he wins? Well, according to Zephyrian law, Korath would have to honor his agreement. The trade deal would go through, and the Zephyrian Empire would have to treat humanity as equals. And if he loses?" Dr. Rodriguez did not answer right away. Finally, he said, "If he loses, humanity will be banned from Zephyrian space for 50 years. And that is assuming other alien species do not see us as weak after watching our ambassador die." Jake finished his meal and stood up. "Thank you all for your hard work on this mission. Whatever happens tomorrow, you should know that serving with you has been an honor." As the team said their goodnights, Amy stayed behind. "Sir, I have one more question." "What is it, Amy? Do you really think you can win?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had accepted that he might die tomorrow. "Amy, I learned something important during my years as a diplomat. Sometimes winning is not about being stronger than your enemy. Sometimes it is about being willing to pay a price that your enemy is not willing to pay. What price are you willing to pay?" The morning of the duel came too quickly. Jake woke up before dawn and sat quietly in his room for an hour. He did not eat breakfast. He did not read the news reports. He just sat and thought about what he had to do. Amy knocked on his door at 7 in the morning. "Sir, it is time to go." Jake stood up and picked up his katana. The sword felt heavier than usual, but also more familiar. He had spent the last 2 days holding it, getting used to its weight and balance. "How do I look?" Jake asked Amy as they walked toward the transport ship that would take them to the arena. Amy tried to smile, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. "You look ready, sir." The arena was an ancient building that had not been used for hundreds of years. It was carved out of black stone and shaped like a huge bowl. Thousands of seats surrounded a circular fighting area in the center. Jake had seen pictures of it, but being there in person was different. The place felt heavy with history and death. Aliens were everywhere. They filled every seat and crowded around viewing screens. Ships from dozens of different worlds floated in orbit above the planet, their crews watching through cameras. Jake had never seen so many different species in one place before. In the fighter preparation rooms below the arena, Jake changed into simple combat clothes. Black pants, black shirt, soft boots. No armor, no protection except for what his own body could provide. Dr. Rodriguez came into the room carrying a small device. "Sir, this is a medical scanner. It will monitor your vital signs during the fight. If your heart stops or if you are badly injured, it will automatically signal for medical help. Jake shook his head. No. Zephyrian duels do not allow outside interference. If I wear that, Korath will claim I am cheating. But sir, if you are hurt, then I will deal with it. Jake picked up his katana and checked the blade one more time. It gleamed like silver in the light. Thank you for everything, Doctor. All of you have served humanity well. Above them, the arena was filling with noise. Thousands of alien voices created a sound like ocean waves. Jake could hear his name being called by the arena announcer, first in the common galactic language, then translated into dozens of other tongues. Amy walked with him to the entrance that led to the fighting floor. Sir, I want you to know something. Whatever happens today, Earth is proud of you. Jake smiled. Take care of yourself, Amy, and if things go badly, make sure the story gets told correctly. Make sure people know that humanity never backed down. The entrance doors opened and Jake walked into the arena. The noise hit him like a physical force. Thousands of aliens were cheering, shouting, and making sounds that his translator could not identify. Some were cheering for him. Most were probably cheering for Korath. The fighting area was exactly as Dr. Rodriguez had described. A perfect circle about 50 meters across, surrounded by walls that were 3 meters high. The floor was made of smooth black metal that reflected the lights from above. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. Jake walked to the center of the circle and waited. He held his katana at his side, the blade still in its scabbard. Around him, the alien crowd grew quieter as they got their first good look at the human, who had dared to challenge their champion. Then the opposite doors opened and Korath entered. The Zephyrian warlord looked even more terrifying than before. His natural armor had been polished until it shone like black mirrors. His 4 eyes glowed red in the arena lights. In his hand he carried his warblade, a weapon that hummed with energy and could cut through almost anything in the galaxy. Korath was huge. Standing across from Jake, he looked like a monster from ancient Earth legends. His footsteps made the metal floor ring like a bell as he walked to his position. The arena announcer's voice echoed through the building. Citizens of the galaxy, today you witness a formal challenge duel according to ancient Zephyrian law. Ambassador Jake Morrison of Earth faces Warlord Korath Vex of the Zephyrian Empire. The combat will continue until one fighter yields or dies. Jake could feel his heart beating fast, but his hands were steady. He had trained himself not to show fear even when he felt it. The fighters will now declare their purposes. The announcer continued. Korath stepped forward and raised his warblade above his head. His voice boomed across the arena. I fight to prove the strength of the Zephyrian Empire. I fight to show the galaxy that only the strong deserve to rule among the stars. The Zephyrian section of the crowd erupted in cheers. Their clicking and buzzing filled the air like a swarm of angry insects. Now it was Jake's turn. He stepped forward and slowly drew his katana from its scabbard. The steel blade caught the light and seemed to glow with its own inner fire. I fight to prove the worth of humanity, Jake said. His voice was much quieter than Korath's, but the arena's sound system carried it to every corner of the building. I fight to show that strength is not just about size or power. I fight for every being in the galaxy who has ever been told they are too small, too weak, or too different to matter. The arena fell completely silent. Even the Zephyrians stopped their cheering. Jake's words had touched something that resonated across species lines. The announcer gave the final warning. Fighters, prepare for combat. Begin on my signal. Jake took a deep breath and held his katana in a traditional Japanese stance that his grandfather had taught him years ago. Across from him, Korath crouched low, his warblade held in both hands. Begin! Korath moved faster than Jake had expected. The huge alien crossed half the distance between them in one leap, his warblade sweeping down in an arc that would have cut Jake in half. But Jake was not there anymore. He had moved sideways, at the last second his katana coming up to deflect Korath's blade. The two weapons met with a sound like thunder. Sparks flew as steel met energy. Jake felt the impact travel up his arms and into his shoulders. Korath's strength was incredible. The deflection had barely worked, and Jake knew he could not do it many times. Korath spun around, surprised that his first attack had missed. His four eyes focused on Jake with new interest. "You are faster than I expected, human, but speed will not save you." Korath attacked again, this time with a series of quick strikes that came from different angles. Jake moved like water, flowing around the attacks, his katana meeting the warblade only when absolutely necessary. To the watching aliens, it looked like an impossible dance. The huge Zephyrian warrior struck with devastating power, each blow capable of destroying a vehicle. The small human moved with fluid grace, avoiding death by fractions of inches. But Jake knew he could not keep this up forever. Korath was not. Even breathing hard while Jake was already starting to feel tired, he needed to change the nature of the fight. Jake did something that no one expected. Instead of backing away from Korath's next attack, he stepped forward into it. Korath's warblade came down toward Jake's head, but Jake was suddenly inside the alien's reach, too close for the long weapon to be effective. Jake's katana found a gap in Korath's natural armor and drew a thin line of blue blood across the alien's side. Korath roared in pain and anger. It was the first time he had been wounded in personal combat in over 20 years. "Impossible!" Korath shouted. "No, being is fast enough to get inside my guard." Jake smiled grimly. "I am not faster than you, Korath, but I fight differently than you expect." The two fighters circled each other warily. Jake's hit had not done serious damage, but it had proven something important. Korath was not invincible. Korath attacked again, this time more carefully. He had learned to respect his opponent, but his caution was also his weakness. Jake had studied Zephyrian psychology. Warriors like Korath were used to overwhelming their enemies with pure aggression. When they had to think and plan, they became less effective. Jake began to press his advantage. He attacked in ways that made no sense to a traditional warrior. Instead of trying to overpower Korath, he used the alien's own strength against him. When Korath pushed forward, Jake pulled him off balance. When Korath tried to retreat, Jake followed and struck at vulnerable points. The crowd was completely silent now. They were watching something that had never happened before. A human was not just surviving against a Zephyrian champion, he was winning. Korath was breathing hard now. Blue blood ran from several small cuts on his arms and legs. None of the wounds were serious, but they were adding up. Worse, the alien warrior was becoming frustrated. "Fight like a warrior," Korath shouted. "Stop dancing around like a coward." Jake shook his head. "I am fighting like a human. That is something you have never faced before." Korath's next attack came with all his remaining strength. He swung his warblade in a wide arc that would have cut Jake in half if it had connected, but Jake had been waiting for this moment. As the warblade swept toward him, Jake dropped to one knee and thrust his katana upward. The steel blade found the one weak point in Korath's armor, the soft spot at the base of his throat. Korath froze. The warblade stopped inches from Jake's head. Both fighters were perfectly still for a long moment. Then Korath's weapon fell from his hands and crashed to the metal floor. The huge alien looked down at the katana blade pressed against his throat. "I yield," Korath said quietly. The arena exploded into chaos. Aliens were cheering, shouting, and making sounds of disbelief. Jake stood up slowly, his katana still pointed at Korath's throat. The arena stayed silent for what felt like forever. Thousands of aliens stared down at the fighting floor where Jake Morrison stood over the defeated warlord Korath. No one could believe what they had just seen. Then one alien started clapping, then another. Soon the entire arena was filled with the sounds of approval from dozens of different species. Some clapped their hands or paws. Others made musical sounds. A few banged metal objects together. It was the strangest applause that anyone had ever heard. Jake helped Korath to his feet. The big alien was bleeding from several small cuts, but none of his wounds were serious. Korath looked at Jake with his four eyes, and for the first time there was no anger in them. "You fought with honor, human," Korath said. His voice was quieter now, without the rage that had filled it before. "I have never been defeated in single combat. You have taught me something today." "What is that?" Jake asked. "That strength comes in many forms. I thought only physical power mattered. But you showed me that the mind can be stronger than the body." Jake bowed again. You are a great warrior, Korath. It was an honor to face you. Korath picked up his war blade and held it for a moment. Then, in a gesture that shocked every alien watching, he offered the weapon to Jake. This blade has been in my family for 10 generations, Korath said. It has never known defeat until today. I offer it to you as a symbol of respect. Jake shook his head politely. Thank you, but I cannot accept such a gift. Your blade belongs with you. Keep it as a reminder that enemies can become friends. The arena announcer's voice broke. The moment. The duel is concluded. Ambassador Jake Morrison of Earth is the victor. According to Zephyrian law, Warlord Korath must honor his agreement. As Jake and Korath walked off the fighting floor together, neither of them knew that their duel had already changed the galaxy forever. On Earth, President Carter was watching the fight with her entire cabinet. When Jake won, the room erupted in cheers. General Hayes, who had been sure that Jake would die, sat in his chair with his mouth open. I don't believe it, the general said. How did he do that? Colonel Banks smiled. Like I told you, sir. Morrison sees things that other people miss. He didn't try to beat Korath with strength. He beat him with strategy. President Carter stood up. Get me a direct communication line to the Galactic Council. We need to take advantage of this moment while the whole galaxy is watching. Within an hour, President Carter was speaking to alien leaders across the galaxy. The message was simple. Humanity was ready to be a full partner in galactic civilization. Earth offered friendship to all peaceful species and trade agreements that would benefit everyone. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had never paid attention to humanity before were suddenly very interested in talking to Earth's representatives. The Botanical Collective wanted to share farming techniques. The Crystal Mines wanted to exchange information about mathematics and science. Even the mysterious Shadow Fleet sent a message saying they were willing to meet with human diplomats. But the biggest change came from the Zephyrian Empire itself. Within days of the duel, Korath had convinced his government to sign not just the trade agreement, but a full military alliance with Earth. The Zephyrians, who respected strength above all else, now saw humans as worthy allies. Jake spent the next week on Nexus Prime meeting with alien ambassadors. Every species wanted to know about the human who had defeated the great Korath. They asked him about human culture, human history, and human ways of thinking. During one meeting with the Hive Mind Collective, a species that shared thoughts among all its members, Jake was asked a question that surprised him. Human Morrison, the collective spokesperson said, we have analyzed your fighting style during the duel. You used techniques that appeared to come from many different sources. How did you learn to fight in so many ways? Jake thought about the question. On Earth, we have many different cultures. Each culture developed its own ways of fighting and solving problems. I studied all of them. Japanese sword fighting, Chinese martial arts, European fencing, African staff combat. I learned that no single way is always the best way. This is interesting, the collective said. Most species develop one primary way of doing things and stick to it. Humans seem to collect different ways from everywhere. That is true, Jake agreed. We call it adaptation. Humans are very good at taking the best ideas from different places and combining them into something new. This conversation was broadcast across the galaxy, and it helped explain something that had been puzzling alien observers. Humans were not the strongest species, or the fastest, or the smartest in any single area. But they were the best at taking ideas from everywhere and using them in new ways. A month after the duel, Jake returned to Earth as a hero, but he was not comfortable with all the attention. He preferred to work quietly, solving problems behind the scenes. Amy Foster, who had been promoted to full colonel after the mission, found Jake in his office one evening. He was reading reports about new diplomatic missions to distant worlds. Sir, you have been offered the position of Earth's first galactic ambassador. You would be in charge of all human relations with alien species. Jake looked up from his reading. What do you think, Amy? Should I take it? Amy sat down across from his desk. Sir, after what you did on Nexus Prime, you could have any job you want. The president would probably make you Secretary of State if you asked. That is not what I asked. I asked what you think I should do. Amy was quiet for a moment. I think you should do what you have always done. Go where humanity needs you most. Jake smiled. And where is that? Out there, Amy said, pointing toward the window where stars were becoming visible in the evening sky. There are hundreds of species we have never met. Some of them probably think humans are weak, just like Korath did. Someone needs to show them that they are wrong. Jake closed the report he was reading and looked out at the stars. You know, Amy, before this all started, I thought my job was just to make trade deals and keep everyone happy. I never thought I would end up fighting alien warriors. Do you regret it? Jake shook his head. No. That duel taught me something important about humans. We are not the biggest or the strongest species in the galaxy, but we have something that many other species lack. What is that? Hope. No matter how impossible something seems, humans believe they can find a way to succeed. Other species see a mountain and think about how hard it will be to climb. Humans see the same mountain and start planning the best route to the top. 3 months later, Jake was on a ship heading to the outer rim of the galaxy. He was leading a diplomatic mission to contact a species called the Iron Lords, who had refused to talk to any other galactic civilization for over 1,000 years. As his ship traveled through hyperspace, Jake practiced with his katana in the ship's exercise room. The blade moved through the air in smooth, precise patterns. He had kept training every day since the duel with Korath. Amy, who was once again serving as his aide, watched him practice. Sir, do you think you will have to fight the Iron Lords, too? Jake finished his exercise and put the sword away. I hope not, Amy, but if I do, I want to be ready. Are you nervous about meeting them? Jake looked out the ship's window at the stars rushing past. A little. The Iron Lords are supposed to be even tougher than the Zephyrians. But that is exactly why we need to talk to them. Why? Because if we can make friends with the Iron Lords, then we can make friends with anyone. And the more friends humanity has in this galaxy, the safer our future becomes. The ship continued its journey toward unknown space, carrying Jake Morrison and his team toward another impossible challenge. But after what had happened on Nexus Prime, the word impossible did not seem to mean the same thing anymore. Back on Nexus Prime, Korath was meeting with other Zephyrian military leaders. They were planning joint training exercises with human forces. The idea of learning human fighting techniques was very popular among young Zephyrian warriors. Tell us again about the humans' sword work, requested Commander Vex, Korath's younger brother. Korath smiled, something he had been doing more often since the duel. The human moved like water, brother. He flowed around my attacks instead of trying to stop them. When I pushed, he pulled. When I retreated, he advanced. It was like fighting the wind. But how did he know what you would do? He studied me, Korath said. Not just my fighting style, but my mind. He understood that I would become angry when I could not land a hit. He used my own emotions against me. The younger Zephyrians clicked their mandibles in amazement. This was a completely new way of thinking about combat. Are humans naturally better fighters than us? Asked another warrior. Korath shook his head. No. In raw strength and speed we are superior. But humans fight with their whole being. Body, mind, and spirit all working together. That makes them very dangerous opponents. As news of these training sessions spread, other species began to ask if they could send observers. The galaxy was learning that there was much more to humans than anyone had realized. Years later, when historians wrote about the moment that changed galactic civilization, they would call it the Morrison Doctrine. The idea was simple. True strength comes not from being the biggest or the toughest, but from being willing to adapt, to learn, and to never give up hope.